of it. The more you chat with us, the better it is. But Patrick, one of the things that is interesting is there. I'm just going to go back here. Sorry, there you go. One of the things that's interesting, Patrick, about this whole cycle is that the comfort zone's easy to explain. Okay, the fear zone is actually relatively easy to explain as well. Okay, and the fear zone, everybody kind of gets it. I mean, they got to become aware of it. Probably one of the biggest danger zones of this whole thing is actually the learning zone, right? Because when you're in the learning zone, you kind of have a toe, if not a foot, if not a whole leg in the fear zone still. And you all will relate to this, folks, where you end up in a situation where you're in the learning zone and then you get sucked back into the fear zone and you thought you had it, you thought you broke through, but you didn't. And that's because the learning zone is a bit of a danger zone. Now, when you get in the growth zone, and if you can stay there long enough, man, then it's all good to go, right, Patrick? That's where the opportunities align. So, folks, put it in the chat and let us know where you're at. Not enough of you are doing that, so I don't know if they're falling asleep already. Patrick, this is an afternoon webinar.
It's an afternoon webinar. You got to engage. You know, we want you to engage because we want to hear from you. Where are you in your process about this? And keep in mind something. This may not just apply to real estate. I mean, maybe right now you start to realize that you've been hanging out in your comfort zone for a couple of months now because of COVID. And guess what COVID is? Well, that's an excuse to say, I can't do anything because I'm locked down. I can't move. Yet, you know, we just talked about having to pivot, having to take even REIN and go virtual and doing all the things that we're doing within our own REIN community. And part of that is what's exciting and creative. And we could use that as an excuse. So what I'm saying is that when we're in the fear zone, excuses make total sense to us. And so where are you in your kind of world that you live in right now, real estate or other?
Very good. Very good. Great job. You guys are doing great in the chat there. Absolutely love it. And folks, we've been through this many times. We've taken 151,000 people through this process. So there's nothing that is surprising us here. We understand it. And the reason is because, Patrick, we go through this process too all the time. We just have because we've done a lot of work on it and a lot of work on ourselves, we can recognize where we are within the process. And then we have strategies and tactics to get us moving faster than being stuck in there. But other than that, folks, we're humans. We go through the damn process just like the rest of you, but the cycles are probably shorter, Patrick. We can get from comfort to growth 10 times faster than the average individual because we are aware of it. And now they are aware of it. You are aware of it, folks. You now get it.
Well, here's the thing. You can be in the comfort zone and the learning zone, as you said. There's one foot in both kind of camps. But ultimately, sometimes we're in the fear zone, learning zone. Sometimes we're in the fear zone and we just keep moving forward anyways because we know we're in the fear zone. And that the best way to bust through fear is to just keep taking steps, moving forward, redecide, decide. And of course, that's what gets you going into the growth zone.
And the thing to move forward, folks, into the growth zone is if it's not just about information. A lot of people think that information is actually going to help them move there, but it doesn't. If it was only about information, we'd all have six-pack abs and be billionaires. We know it's not. It's about having the right tools, the right strategies, the right tactics, and having a system for success. That's what you need, folks, is a system for success. And that's what we're going to share with you today. I mean, Patrick, this is really what REIN is all about, in fact, is giving people this tool belt essentially empty and then slowly starting to put tools in those tool belt. In your case, you've been doing it for people for 20 some odd years. In my case, I've been doing it for 15 years, but that's what we do and that's what REIN does. Isn't that right?
Well, it is. And here's the thing about it all, JG, is that I love the analogy in this, tool belt, because in the world of real estate, we often joke about, if you've only got a hammer, what does everything look like? Well, it looks like a nail, doesn't it? Because you've got a hammer, you have to use it. But when you start to understand that a real estate market requires some understanding of different tools to use, different strategies to use, different tactics to use, because that's where the power lives. Is that so when you walk in, you go, oh gosh, that isn't a nail and all I've got is a hammer. Oh, I can't do anything. When you have a tool belt full of tools, you start to understand that, oh, this economic condition doesn't warrant a buy and hold in a traditional sense, but it's a great market for a fix and flip. It's a great market for a rent to own. It's a great market for an agreement for sale. So there's so much learning that you can carry in your tool belt, and then know when to pull those tools out, know when to use them, know how to engage in them. And so for you today, you know, when we're looking, when we want to go back, let's, JG, even if we go back to talking about the myths and the mistakes that people make, is that they learn one strategy and they try and make it work in every market. And it just doesn't. You need to be able to move, put your money to work, leverage your capital. And so we're going to talk about that today in some of the tools in this tool belt that we can provide, and an understanding of it, an overview of it, and then how to move forward through different markets.
So here's an overview, folks, of how to know which tool to pull out at which time. Yeah, there's 4 major criteria. The first one is, what are your goals? Do you have active income goals? Do you have passive income goals? How big are your goals? You know, for example, if someone here said, listen, I want to retire very securely. And in retirement, I want $10,000 a month in income, in passive income. Well, that's a very different goal, Patrick, than I want to do $100 million of real estate, or I want to do $100,000 a month in passive income when I retire. Those are 2 very different goals, and they require very different strategies as well. You don't need the same tools for those 2 things. So what are your goals? And folks, if you're taking notes down, please jot this down, which is the first question you should ask yourself is, what do you want real estate to do for you? You know, because if we just say, what are our goals? Sometimes that's a question that doesn't yield us a good response. So I find if you want a better response, you ask better questions. And one of the great questions I like to ask is, what do you want real estate to do for you? Like, it's a tool. It's going to do things for you. What do you want those things to be? So that's the first question. Second question is, what market are you investing in? Now, right now, you're asking yourself, where should I invest, JG? Patrick, tell me. You tell me where I should invest. Well, the good news is, we're actually going to teach you the secret formula so you can figure out exactly where you need to invest for yourself. But what market are you investing in, and what market cycle is that? Where's that market in its market cycle? Is it boom, bust? Is it going up? Is it going down? Where do you anticipate it to go? And one of the biggest myths, Patrick, that people make in this market, in real estate in general, is they're always looking at where the market has been. But as a real estate investor, you're actually trying to get ahead of the market.
You have to look into the future, because as real estate investors, that's what we're trying to do. We need to decide and define where we think real estate is going. And the good news is that the economic fundamentals actually tell you that, so that we get in front of the wave, so that the wave washes over us, or we catch the wave and ride it and get off where we want to. But ultimately, our job as real estate investors is to get out in front of the market. Now, I want to just share one fundamental thing around, you know, learning and all the rest of it, is we have to manage the expectations of what does it take. I mean, we're talking about investing in real estate literally with the potential of making millions of dollars. Millions of dollars, JG. You know that. I know that. That's the potential. So do you believe, you know, when you look at your goals, you have to believe, number one, that that's the possibility, because we actually have track records. We have proof of that. That's all possible. So yes, you can do it. But then it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is when we talk about real estate investing in Canada intensive, this is about learning. You know, like when you look at what you do for your job and how hard you work for the money you make in your job, what do you need to learn to be great at the role or the job that you have? And real estate's like that. It's learning. It's like the career that you're building. You may have spent 5, 10, 15, 25, 40 years building your career and learning and doing all this stuff, and you've made a lot of money doing that. And real estate's that way. When you're clear on your goals, when you understand what it is that you're doing, and you go through that learning and understanding of it and putting your time, and then if we get to time, money, knowledge, you have to have the time, money, and knowledge aspect of it.
Well, Patrick, you know, folks, first of all, Patrick and I love analogies. Now, are we any good at it? Probably not, but we love explaining through analogies, okay? And let us know if this one makes sense, because I just thought of a new one, Patrick. Is as a real estate investor, you're essentially a real estate surfer, and you want to get ahead of the wave, right? The wave is coming, and just like if you've ever surfed before, and if you have, let me know, put it in the comments. If you haven't, that's okay, but here's how it works. You go out there and you sit in the ocean. You're sitting in this vast body of water, And let's just say you're out there, you're brand new, you've never surfed before, okay? So you're not really sure what the hell's going on. So you're doing like everybody else. You're just kind of like going out there in the water and you're sitting on your board and you're just waiting for the wave to come. And you're going to notice if you're an inexperienced surfer that like just over there, all of a sudden that wave is taken off. And oh my God, that guy's surfing all this. And then this guy on beside you over here and this gal over here and everybody's on waves around you and you're sitting there in the ocean thinking, what the hell is going on? It's the same with real estate. And what stops you from getting in the wave is these things. You're not clear on these four things and the growth zone. Back to you're not in the growth zone. If you're sitting in the ocean in the fear zone, you're not going to be able to pick out the waves. And it's the same thing in real estate. Patrick, does that communicate?
I thought that's pretty good. That's almost as good as the hummingbird investor. Like that is almost as good.
So we need t-shirts. I'm not a hummingbird investor. I'm a surfer investor.
Exactly. You're going to know when to catch the wave because you're focused on and you're aware of the tools you have. You understand your goals. You understand how to look into the future. It's like having that crystal ball and when and how to catch the wave.
And if you want to know, okay, how do you figure that out? It comes a lot down to the market and the market cycle. And we're actually going to teach you how to do that today. But Patrick, let's talk about resources because time, money, and knowledge are the three resources that all of us as real estate investors, doesn't matter if we have one property, one job, it doesn't matter what we have in our lives. We have a certain amount of time to dedicate to real estate. We have a certain amount of money that we're starting with and that we have access to. And then we have a certain amount of knowledge that we can tap into and grow. Now, the knowledge one is the one you should be constantly investing in. That's why we do what we do at REIN. And the more you're increasing your knowledge, and please jot this down, folks, it's a total pro tip. The more knowledge you have, the less money you need. Jot that down. The more knowledge you have, the less money you need. And what's going to happen is that's what a lot of you have to get to. You may not have $50, $100, $300, $500,000 to start. If you don't have enough money to really dive deep into real estate right now, you need to triple down on knowledge. That's the only way you're going to be successful in this game, Patrick.
It is. It's actually time spent. You know, I saw Rose comment in the chat that she's new and she's starting to get familiar with the language and she's starting to understand more. It's like, and when you start to understand the language, like when I started in real estate, I wasn't quite sure how to spell it. You know, is it one word? Is it two words? Do I capitalize it? Like as you ask those simple questions, right? Like that's how green I was 20 some years ago. But the point is that as we get the knowledge, as we get the education, we start to immerse ourselves in it, some familiarity starts to happen. Now, when we look at our resources called time, money, and knowledge, we have to say, what have I got and what don't I have? We call it the time, money, knowledge matrix. So how much time do I have in my day? How much money do I have access to, either personally or through capital partners, friends, family, whatever that might be? And how much knowledge do I have? Because if you're going to attract joint venture capital, you need to have that knowledge because people need to be comfortable with you as the leader, as well as you have to know how to attract that capital. Now, here's something interesting. I want to give people perspective. Here's one of the things, JG, I haven't brought this up in one of these webinars before, but I think it's let's do it right here. And that is people get stuck in the information, like I need more, and they don't get started and they have all the reasons. And it's often because they're overwhelmed with what the magnitude of it is, you know, because they say, well, I want to own 3 doors, 5 doors, 10 doors, or I want to go to the next level. But for those of you who are just starting out particularly, they go, well, I got a full-time career, I got kids, I don't have time. I'm really struggling with time. But if we just slow it down and we go, okay, you got a great career, you're making a good income, but you see in the future you're going to need more and you want more. You want that financial security, that financial freedom in the future. Break it down into bite-sized pieces. And here's the real fundamental question, JG. Ask yourself right now, can you buy 1 door this year? Let's say it's I don't know, depending on what area you're in, let's say it's a $500,000 property. Let's just put something in the middle. Could you picture yourself as busy as you are? Could you find the time, the money, and the knowledge to buy only 1 door? And can you do that 1 door a year for 3 years? Well, 3 doors, that's now $1.5 million worth of real estate that you own. Now extrapolate that over 15, 20, 25 years. Okay, well, you're building your career, you're still making money, you're still loving life, you've got the kids, you got all the things. You got 1 door, you got 2 doors, you got 3 years. 1 door a year for 3 years, 1 door a year for 5 years. Break it down. It doesn't mean you're going to be a full-time real estate investor. What are we trying to do? That's why your goals are so important. Passive income, active income, what are you working backwards from?
Very, very, very well said, Patrick. Absolutely. So, folks, you have to choose the right tool for the right job. And it comes down to what strategy do you use? Now, there's a lot that goes into this, and our job today is to illuminate the path forward for you. It's to be able to shine the lights on in the dark corners of real estate that we don't want you to A, step into, or B, you may not know about. It may be a great strategy, but you don't know how to do it. And the reason we present the real estate investor success cycle early on in this presentation is because the following case studies, we're going to show you 4 case studies. You really need to be in the growth zone, Patrick. You need to be deep in the learning zone and into the growth zone to see the potential here. Because if you're not, if you're in the fear zone or comfort zone, this shows up as, only JG can do that. Only Patrick can do that. Of course Patrick can do that. He's been in business for 35 years. Of course JG can do that. Look at his amazing hair, even during COVID-19. So as if, right? So, Patrick, you have to be in the right place in order to really accept that this is happening. Every number we show you here, folks, are all legit numbers. They're all real deals that we've done. And they all come from the REIN system. They all come from real estate investing in Canada, the intensive program we're going to show you.
And on top of that, just to add to that, JG, expand on it, is the fact is that we deal with thousands of real estate investors over the course of the year. And I mean, these are just examples of thousands of deals that we hear about and see actually being transacted. So for the first commitment, if you're writing notes down, is you're going to get into the learning zone, but the first thing you have to do is commit to learning. And you're not going to do it in a 90, maybe a whole bunch of 90-minute webinars, but just manage the expectations of your learning. Are you willing and are you committed to learning to make millions of dollars in the world of investing in real estate? Because you can when you learn how to do it the right way.
Yeah. If we said to you today, okay, and this is important, if we said to you today, folks, if you start today and you follow this system, you will build a multi-million dollar business. You would expect to work your ass off. You would expect to invest heavily in yourself and in your business. You would expect these things. But with real estate, Patrick, people think it's just going to fall from the sky.
Well, yeah, and maybe that it should be, they shouldn't have to know so much, or maybe it's easier, or, I don't know. Where do people get dissuaded? You're on here today. We're going to show you that it is possible. We're going to give you some ideas of how to do it. We're going to give you some real examples here next of what's possible.
So let's get into it. This is a buy and hold, folks. Classic, easy strategy. And I say easy in the sense that it's relatively straightforward. You don't need to have a huge knowledge quotient for this. So this building I purchased for $483,000. I invested $50,000 of cash. It appreciated $100,000 in the $30,000 of cash flow, $100,000 of appreciation, and $50,000 of mortgage pay down. Now, pop quiz, get ready, put your hands on the keyboard. Who paid for the mortgage pay down? Go. Who? Who's going to get the prize? Yes, Hamza, you win the prize. The renters, the tenants, my clients, our clients. That's who paid for this mortgage pay down. But Patrick, pop quiz for you. Whose return on investment is that?
Not the tenants.
That's right. It's ours, right? So as the owners, it's our return on investment. So very good. Adam, awesome. Great job. So folks, in this deal here, you're talking about a 5-year timeline. You're looking at a 72% ROI. Now, this is a great ROI. Is it out of this world? Definitely not. Do you do deals that are less than 72% per year? Yes, you do. But this is a normal everyday deal on a buy and hold. Nothing too crazy here. And buy and hold is really the foundation of many people's portfolios, certainly all of you on this and mine and Patrick's and a lot of REIN members. But the thing with buy and hold is there's 2 caveats to it. Please make these asterisks on your note. Number 1, it's very capital intensive. It requires a lot of cash, okay? And number two is at some point it becomes difficult to finance these kinds of properties by yourself. Now, there are strategies to get over that, and we show those strategies all the time, but it does get a little bit more difficult. So those are the two caveats, which opens up the door to different types of strategies. Like, here's number two, fix, flip, and refi. Now, fix, flip, and refi is where you buy something that needs love. You buy something that needs updates. You buy something that needs renovations. You buy something that needs some of your tender love and care. So I bought this property. This one, the last one I showed you was in Huntsville, Ontario. This deal is in Peterborough, Ontario. I bought this for $257,000, $10,000 for closing and carrying costs. We invested 30 grand into the renovations. So what did we do? Well, we put in new floors. We painted the place. We put in a new kitchen. We created parking stalls at the back. We fixed up the front deck. We did a little bit of outdoor landscaping, and we changed a few light fixtures, and we added a bathroom. So we added a bathroom. That's where most of the money went, bathroom and the kitchen. And then the rest was relatively inexpensive stuff, but it yielded a great ROI. That $30,000 of renovations boosted our property value, and it got reappraised at 350 grand. I pulled 80% loan to value out, 80% of my capital. I pulled it back out from the bank. The bank financed us. They cut us a check for 280 grand. So the return on investment there is, and this is key. Let me pause. The total amount invested is $17,000 at this point. You can see it here, $17,000, right? So that $17,000, I invested a total of $297,000 minus $280,000 the bank gave me back. Therefore, we got $17,000 net into this property. The net cash flow on this property is $500 a month or $6,000 a year. That's a 35% return on investment, cash on cash. Patrick, if I consider the appreciation, the mortgage pay down, this is a 474% ROI. Awesome.
Awesome. That's good math, man.
That's good. That's good math. Now, folks, I know what you're thinking, because I've said this many, many times, and you're thinking, well, JG, where did you get this deal? You must have bought it, privately, pocket listing, something fancy. Folks, I bought this on MLS. That deal actually sat on MLS, Patrick, for 5 months. 5 months of people looked at that deal, passed it up, and we did what we did with it. Worked out really, really well for us. It was a great investment. Fix, flip, and refi is a great strategy, Patrick. If you have, again, back to that, if the more knowledge you have, the less money you need. Look at the combination of those two strategies. Buy and hold, I had to leave 50 grand in that deal. This deal, only 17 grand I had to leave into this deal. That's a big difference, Patrick. That means you could do 3 of these for every one of those.
The more knowledge you have, the less capital you need.
Wonderful. Next, so those two strategies are passive income strategies, folks. That means that they do not pay you money today. They pay you money later. They are your retirement. If you have passive income goals like retirement, security, retiring early, all that kind of stuff, these are passive income goals. That doesn't mean you don't use this money that you make to go buy a Porsche or anything like that. If you want to do fancy things with your money, go on fancy vacations, fly first class, buy a Porsche or a fancy car, any of that stuff, then you need active income strategies, okay? Those are very different. This is one of the myths, Patrick. I know you're passionate about it. Tell us about the difference here, because a lot of real estate investors make the mistake of using their passive income, and they squander it, they waste it, and then they end up, pissing it all away.
Well, I guess we could add, there's a layer of clarity. If we were going to put it on this list, I would say, future passive, because this is not a current passive income. We all want passive income. I want passive income today, but I'm not going to get it on a buy and hold strategy unless I'm going to put a lot of money in. Maybe I'm going to pay cash for the deal, and then that's going to generate a passive income on me writing a check for $500,000 to pay for that property. Now, you're not leveraging your money, so your ROI is kind of crappy. So let's not get too confused about it. Here's the mistake and the myth. People buy a buy and hold property that, let's say, cash flows $500 a month. they're pitched on the deal saying, buy this deal, $500 a month. You get to put that $500 a month in your jeans. Now, you can do that, and that's the mistake, because the myth is you put $500 a month in your jeans. The mistake is you put $500 in your jeans, because guaranteed in a buy and hold strategy that $500 is going to be required in 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, because you're going to replace a roof, you're going to replace a furnace, a hot water heater, appliances, because there's just maintenance that's required, normal wear and tear, or even extensive hard-on wear and tear because you have tenants going through. Maybe you have a tenant that, touch wood, trashes the property to some degree. There's just damage. So you want to be able to build up your reserve fund, and that can take a number of years. So that $500 a month should not be going into your jeans, because it's going to come out of your jeans, and it's really going to ruin your day when it does.
This is the kind of thing that we like to myth bust. You know, these are the kinds of mistakes people make. One of the biggest classic mistake people make is they start to have success in real estate, and then they quit their job to do that full time. They take all their passive income out of their properties, and they actually lose their financeability because they just quit their job. How often have you seen that one, Patrick?
100 times. It's like a lot of times, you know, it just what happens. So the key here, that $500 a month, $300 a month, $700 a month, I don't care what it is, stays in your bank account, in your household, like your house bank account, so that builds your reserve fund, so that when stuff happens, guess what? You don't care. It's not that you don't care, but you're not sweating it because you got the capital to cover it.
Now, this game of real estate is not a solo sport, folks. You need to build up a power team for this. You know, to do a deal like we just showed you, you need to have a broker, a great mortgage broker. You need to have a great private lender. You need to have a great mortgage agent. You have to have a great lawyer, a great accountant. You have to have a great general contractor. You have to have great trades. You have to have a great bookkeeper. There's lots of bookkeeping with deals like that. Patrick, we're talking about a team of 8, 9, 10 people to do a deal like that. It's not a solo sport.
It isn't a solo sport. And here's the thing. We have to preface all of those things with investor focused. Yes. Investor focused realtor, investor focused accountant, investor focused lawyer. That's another mistake, another myth that is made. Well, I got my brother-in-law. No, he's a really good realtor. Well, okay. Does he own does he own investment real estate? Number one. Number two, does he understand that you as an investor have a different way of looking at a property than somebody who's buying a home? Two totally different agendas, by the way, JG, as you know. And so that's a mistake and a myth that has to be busted. You need an experienced team to do this.
100%. So let's talk about fix, flip, and sell, folks. This is an active income strategy. You are putting this cash in your pockets. You are making money at that time, that year. You're paying taxes on that money. This property is in Hamilton, actually. Now, notice right away. Patrick said it right a while ago. Your job as an investor is to make your money work harder for you than you work for it. Period. End of story. Write that down. Okay? Now, notice I've showed you 3 deals, and I've picked 3 different markets. And all times, I picked 3 different types of strategies. That's not by accident, folks. That's because the markets warranted a different strategy. Because of their market cycle, they warranted a different strategy. So we did a fix and flip. This is in Hamilton. What we bought was on the left. What we sold was on the right. And here are the numbers. We purchased it for $260,000. We put $20,000 into renovations, $18,350 for holding and closing costs. So the total cost is where it is. Roughly three. What's the total cost? It's hidden in my window here, Patrick. But the total cost is what the total cost we sold.
$298,350.
$298. That's right, just under $300, and then we sold it for $345. So now this deal actually did not go according to plan. Just so everybody knows, it did not at all go according to plan, which is why we teach at the Real Estate Investing in Canada Intensive, Patrick. We teach about exit strategies. You need multiple exit strategies when you get into these kinds of deals, because often the deals don't go exactly as you planned. And if you have backup plans, then you're able to get out of the deal successfully. And this is where a lot of people get hurt, Patrick. For example, they only go into a deal with one exit plan, no backup plan. That exit plan fails. Now they're stuck with a property that's losing money. They're losing money. They're paying expenses on that property. That goes on for too long. It gets very, very dangerous very, very quickly. So this one, hey, if you could do a 46 grand on a flip, by the way, guys, on a fix and flip, 46 grand is a solid double, maybe even a triple. It's a good little flip. And I think that this is a perfect situation, Patrick, where if someone's looking for active income, and let's slow it down by saying this, folks. This isn't only do flips and don't do anything else. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that you have to take out tools in your tool belt based on what's happening in the marketplace. So when should you fix and flip? Not all the time. You should fix and flip when it's time to fix and flip. Right, Patrick?
Well, that's exactly right. Not only when it's time, but in the right market. Once again, when you understand the economic fundamentals, when you understand what drives a very, very specifically a city, a region, even a neighborhood, by the way, because you take into factors of transportation changes, follow the money, what other companies are moving in there, all those kinds of things that play into this. Now, JG, how long did this take you to make this $46,650?
Well, the plan was it was supposed to take 4 to 6 weeks. And it ended up taking 4 months because we ran into problems. We ran into troubles. And that's what happens in these kinds of deals. Still a great deal.
I've never asked you this question. It's still a great deal. So I've never asked you this question before. But you're the overseer because you understand sweat equity without ever picking up a hammer, although you like to pick up a hammer just to show people that you know how to hold the hammer at the right end.
I pick up the hammer and I take pictures and put the hammer down.
And then you throw a little bit of drywall dust on you, so it looks like you've done something. You put on a hard hat, like you got
that's why people, Patrick, they say never wear black on a construction site, but I always wear black because it makes me look dirty.
Total photo op. So you look at taxes on that. So you're going to pay a little bit of a capital gains tax, no, because you're going to run this through a corporation probably. So taxes are those things. People always go, well, what about the taxes? Yes, got it. We know all that. So, the question I have for you. So you're overseeing it. How many hours did you put into that?
Myself, probably
like 4 months.
Yeah, probably put maybe 100 hours in.
100 hours. So what does that work out to on a basis of?
$460 an hour.
That's it, eh? $460, and that's a bad one. And do you still own the asset?
Not in this case because I sold it. This is a flip and sell.
Yeah. So all you made was $460 an hour.
Yeah. When you put it like that, Patrick. Yeah. And I probably overestimated at 100 hours, to be quite frank. It's great. So great point, Patrick. I love Hamza's bringing up a really good point. Which is your, and I love it. There's always two things. The holding and closing costs are high. You can see where the holding and closing costs are high. And part of the reason for that, there's two reasons for that. Number one, we use some private funds. Those are expensive. And number two, that does include the realtor commission, I believe, in these numbers. And on we sold for $345, right? $345. Yeah, they paid $14K in realtor commissions. So this is. But Patrick, let's talk about taxes. Everyone loves to talk about taxes. So you got to pay taxes on this, Patrick. What a damn shame, man! What a damn shame. You got to pay for taxes.
It fires me up, the whole tax thing. People let that get in their way, and it fires me up because back in the late '90s, I actually walked away from real estate because somebody said, "Yeah, there's big tax implications." I went, "Whoa." And I never, so anyways, let's be really clear. There's two things are going to happen. You're either going to pay capital gains tax, which is about 50% of 50%. So in other words, like rough math, let's say you pay 25% tax on that. Let's just say that's the number. Never complain about paying tax because it means you made a profit. Now, your job is to pay and have to have a conversation with your accountant and understanding what's your bigger picture is like so that you are paying the minimal amount of tax while staying within the guidelines of the law. That's it. And so don't complain about paying tax. We live in Canada. We live in a beautiful country. I say it all the time. We live clean air, beautiful streets. There's nothing wrong with the conditions of Canada. And one of the reasons is because we pay taxes. And we can talk about politics and all the rest of it. But listen, if we're paying tax, it means we're making money. And I love to dumb things down to keep it really straightforward. $46,650, 100 hours. of work. So let's say that's for the average guy, that's a couple of weeks, let's say 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks of work. Now, if somebody offered you a job where, you were making whatever the rough math of that is, $15,000 a week, would you take it? Probably, really. And, oh, by the way, you don't have to do it all back to back. You get to do it over a period of time.
Yeah, really well said, Patrick. Craig's asking a good question. How did I sell this one? I sold on the MLS. I hired a realtor. We sold it in that particular case. So fix, flip, and sell is on the active income side. And fix, flip, and sell, folks, remember, the more knowledge you have, the less money you need. And fix, flip, and sell doesn't require as much capital as a lot of people think. And the reason is because you're either working with partners or you're using private money. So you don't need as much of your own capital in there. So that's the situation with that. Something to look into, something for you to get comfortable with. You probably shouldn't start your first fix and flip by borrowing 12% money and, getting in there yourself. I mean, you got to warm up these things. You got to get educated, folks, and you got to get the system. I didn't start that way, but once you get more and more comfortable, then you end up with real home runs. And Patrick, I'm not even showing real home runs in this presentation because if I did, they wouldn't even believe me. So.
People don't believe it. I know.
Okay, let's talk an assignment. Last strategy to present today, Patrick. We're way over time, naturally, of course, but we're going to talk assignments now. So what an assignment is, folks, and an assignment is often called wholesaling. Same thing, assignments, wholesaling, same strategy. And here's an example of an assignment. So I purchased this property for $130 grand. I assigned it for $160. It was $5,000 for closing and holding costs. So we made a profit of $25,000, and that happened in 3 weeks, and we never touched the property. Now, a couple of things. I'll explain in a minute how an assignment works, but you're wondering, how did you buy a property for 130 grand? Again, this is in Hamilton. Secondly, have a good look at that picture because that house is falling apart. It's got no friggin' windows in it. It had no plumbing left in it. I mean, it was a complete... Our plan, speaking of exit plans, our plan was originally to actually do a complete fix and flip on this thing, but we actually ended up assigning it along the way, which is great because it's a good way to turn your money very quickly. Let me show you how this works. Patrick, I'm going to make you the seller. I'm going to pretend you own that beauty, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna pretend that in this case, I'm the buyer and assignor, and Patrick's the seller. So what I do in this case, folks, is I create an offer to purchase, just like every other real estate transaction. I put in a little clause that says that I can assign this deal, which is very, very common. If you have an investor-focused realtor, they'll know how to do this. And I purchase that property. I have the right to purchase it. I give Patrick $3,000 deposit when we negotiate the right to purchase. I give him a $3,000 deposit. That's the only cash I've invested up until this point. I then turn around, I take that piece of paper called my offer to purchase for 130 grand, and I go to Craig Peterson, who's on the call. And Craig Peterson is the assignee. And Craig, I'm making this up, Craig, but I'm going to pretend that Craig is someone who likes to do fix and flip for a living. So that's what he does. He buys dilapidated pieces of junk. He owns a renovation company, and that's what he does. He does flips for a living. So what I do then is I take this piece of paper and I sell it to Craig, and I assign the deal to Craig, and Craig pays me 30 grand for that. Now you're asking yourself, why would Craig pay 30 grand for that? Well, because if you count the original 130, that's the original price that's on the piece of paper, plus the money Craig's going to pay me for the deal, 30 grand, he's getting a property for 160 grand. So Craig's like, this is a great friggin' deal. I'll pay 160 for this thing all day long. And then what happens is once that transaction takes place, I make $30,000 as the buyer and the assignor. And Craig, in this example, has the opportunity to close the purchase with the seller. So that way Craig is closing with Patrick, and Craig's got his piece of paper called an offer to purchase. He closes on the deal with Patrick. I'm out of the picture. I made my 30 grand. Thank you very much. I have a couple of costs against that, but I'm done, and that's the deal. Patrick, now, folks, if you're paying close attention, this is where the success cycle comes in, Patrick, because if people are in the fear zone, they're looking at this and they're saying, I don't know if this is possible. I'm telling you, folks, it happens every damn day of the week. It's possible, and it happens in every market across the country.
And it does. And some people make this is another term for this is called wholesaling. And we have many REIN members in the community right across the country where wholesaling is actually the business that they're in. And they're either finding deals and wholesaling them, or they're buying wholesale deals. So they're on either side of the equation, by the way. So the point is that in their world, this is all normal.
Yep, 100%. I buy and sell wholesale deals all the time. So, folks, this is important. And the reason that we bring up this strategy is because of all the strategies we presented today, it is, and yes, in this case, Craig, I did call a fix and flipper. And that's a fix and flipper, not like the dolphin, but someone who does fix and flips for a living. That's one of my dad jokes, by the way. I did call it fix and flipper. I did sell it to a person who did fix and flip, and they ended up making great money on it, by the way. But it is that strategy of assignments requires very little capital, Patrick. If you compare a buy and hold where you're going to have to put $75, $100, $150,000 into a deal, compared to an assignment where you're doing an assignment for $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, man, that's a very different, it's a different strategy. You definitely need more knowledge on the assignment side for sure. And like I said, the more knowledge you have, the less money you need. And yeah, so those are your 4 strategies for today, folks. And you can see they have different requirements of capital, different amounts of time required, different amount of money required, and different amount of knowledge required. That's why time, money, knowledge, those are your resources. That's what you can play with. But waiting is never a good idea, Patrick. When it comes to real estate, leverage is the powerhouse that you're enacting. Time is on your side when it comes to real estate. So with time and leverage, you need to not wait. Waiting is a bad idea, and you got to start by getting educated. You got to start by having a system, but you can't wait, because the best time to buy real estate, Patrick, is just like an oak tree. The best time to plant an oak tree was 30 years ago. The next best time is right now. Same with real estate.
Exactly the same. And here's the thing about waiting, stopping. Like, COVID is presenting a absolute opportunity that has never and will never experience again. And right now is not the time to sit on the sidelines and wait. Now's the time to get your education. And that's one of the reasons that we are presenting this particular webinar. It's why we're presenting Real Estate Investing in Canada, a one-day intensive, which we'll talk about. But ultimately, this is the time to sharpen your saw, because when opportunities start to show up, it'll be because you understand what's possible, but you need to make sure that your tool belt has the tools in it so that you can actually pull them out and go to work and actually start applying those tools, given what's going to happen in the market conditions. And we're going to talk about the economic fundamentals in just a minute. 100%.
So folks, Patrick, let's finish this section off by explaining the concept of a hummingbird investor. We'll play this short little 15-second video, and then we'll get into research. Tell us about a hummingbird investor, because it's brilliant.
We do see it all the time. And that we also see it often in these scenarios where people are coming on webinars and they're looking and they're buzzing. It's like a hummingbird. What do hummingbirds do? They flit from flower to flower, to tree to feeder to feeder, because what are they looking for? They're looking for that hit of something, that hit of sugar, that hit of sweetness, if you will, all to get fed. But ultimately, they're bouncing from one place to another, not focused. It's like a hummingbird strategy. And they actually, in the world of a hummingbird investor, they don't actually ever complete anything. They seem really busy, and they actually feel that they're very busy, because they are, but they're just not busy producing results. And, so they keep going from flower to flower to flower, to shiny thing, to sweet thing, to the next thing, and they don't get the results. And so they say, well, real estate sucks. No, it doesn't. Real estate doesn't fail us. We fail real estate.